Free agency hasn't even started yet, and the Red Sox are already losing names. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Sea Radio. My name is Corbin, and thank you very much for clicking on this video. Look, first things first, what'd you guys think of that new intro? I'm playing around with a couple of things, want to get your guys' opinions, but anyways, the Red Sox have already lost some key figures in this off-season period for them. No, not in terms of their player base. Well, I guess they did lose Alex Bregman, at least for right now, so I guess you can count him in there. I'm talking more so in terms of either the front office or potentially even the coaching staff, and it feels like they might not be the only ones to leave the Red Sox organization this season. But before we start fear-mongering that sort of narrative here, let's talk about the guys the Red Sox have already lost. Now, the first name is a name I'm assuming you guys have already heard of, right? Because this was all the way back towards the end of September that the Red Sox ended up losing this guy, and that was the fact that Paul Tobani, the Red Sox assistant GM at the time, has left this organization to become the Craig Breslow of the Washington Nationals. And I'm not going to pretend like I know how big of an impact Tobani had on the Boston Red Sox while he was here. Usually these assistant GM types, they don't really get a ton of credit for the things that they actually do, right? It all kind of falls down on Craig Breslow's head. So whether he was good, whether he was bad, ultimately we're going to talk about it in terms of what Craig Breslow did and not so much in terms of what Paul Tobani did. But what I can tell you is based on what the reactions were among this front office, he was a pretty important figure to this Red Sox team. One, because internally he was the leading candidate to become Breslow's number two. In fact, so much so that it kind of sounds like Breslow's GM search has taken a few steps backwards after this departure, right? It sounds like the Red Sox were sitting there saying, yeah, it's going to be Paul Tobani, and then we're going to make the announcement in the offseason, whatever. And then Tobani took this Nationals job, and Breslow said, well, wait a second, now I don't know who the hell I'm going to hire, right? So they're kind of back towards square one there. Breslow's goal is to hire a GM this offseason. I think it's really important that Breslow finds a GM, right? That sort of yin to his yang, that guy who's going to balance him out a little bit, maybe take him out of the analytics a bit would be fantastic. And if Tobani was that guy, you are losing a pretty important figure for the Boston Red Sox. The other reason I know that he was a pretty important figure here is because of the fact that while the Red Sox were searching for Craig Breslow and ultimately landed on Craig Breslow, Tobani actually did interview for the Red Sox CBO job, right? So we know the Red Sox internally really value Paul Tobani's experience. Fun fact about Tobani, he started as an intern for the Sox in 2025 and in 10 years is now running a major league franchise. That's kind of wild to me, right? That's an unbelievably fast career trajectory, it feels like, especially in Major League Baseball. I don't think we ever talked about Tobani leaving on this channel, so I did want to give my piece in this sort of segment here, but that's not the newest news. The newest news is that someone else is going to be joining him over there, but before we talk about that, a quick word from today's sponsor. And of course, today's sponsor is DraftKings, and they have an absolutely fantastic offer for you right now on DraftKings. New customers who sign up using code REDSEAT and bet $5, if that bet hits, get $200 in bonus bet instantly. You can then stay in the action and use your bonus bets on DraftKings single game parlays at your shot at an even bigger payout. To take advantage of this fantastic offer, all you have to do is use code REDSEAT when you're signing up. Again, fantastic offer, code REDSEAT. Thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring this episode. Please don't forget to gamble responsibly. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Let's get back to the video. Because Paul Tobani made his first hiring as the CBO of the Washington Nationals, and of course it was someone from within the Red Sox organization, because recently he hired Red Sox employee, well I guess now former Red Sox employee, Devin Pearson as his GM. Now that name might not stand out to a lot of you guys as, oh my god, I can't believe the Red Sox lost Devin Pearson to the Washington Nationals, right? But he was a pretty important figure within the Red Sox organization. Been here almost as long as Tobani has, joined the Red Sox back in 2017, and most recently, the position that Tobani poached this guy from was Director of Amateur Scouting. Specifically, it's that he led the last three draft classes for the Boston Red Sox. Now, if you take a look at the last three draft classes, there's a whole lot of successes kind of already within this class, right? Some of the highlights here are Kyle Teal, who was traded for Garrett Crochet, obviously, and is now a pretty successful Major League Baseball player, at least in his first stint at the big league level. Christian Campbell, who obviously we all know know, became one of the big three prospects for the Red Sox, signed a big deal, or not really a big deal, but signed a deal with this team. Still has a ton of potential to be an impact player at the major league level. Conley Early, huge guy within the Red Sox system right now. A lot of people are talking about him as potentially one of the big names in the Red Sox rotation going forward. Peyton Tolley, who became one of the best pitching prospects in baseball last season. Braden Montgomery, who again was traded for Garrett Crochet and is kind of tearing it up for the Chicago White Sox in their farm system. I mean, this dude clearly has a pretty darn good eye for talent, so losing him is obviously going to be a bit of a hit for the Boston Red Sox. Now again, I don't know how big of a hit it's going to be for this Red Sox team. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know all of these guys and I'm familiar with everything that they've done, but you just take a look at these draft classes and you're like, okay, yeah, that guy clearly knew what he was doing, right? There's a legitimate potential here that within the next 2, 3, 4 years, 3 guys are potentially mainstays in this rotation that were drafted by Pearson, right? You take a look at this and he's had some pretty impressive draft classes under his belt, but how big of an impact is this really for the Boston Red Sox? To be totally honest with you, for fans like me and you who sit here day to day and watch this Red Sox team, I don't know that it's going to have that much of an impact, right? I don't think anyone's sitting here watching this video going, oh my God, the Red Sox lost Devin Pearson. I don't know what they're going to do going forward. How are they going to operate going forward, right? There is going to be a bit of an impact. However, the Red Sox do already have a replacement for Pearson set and ready to go. In fact, the same day that they lost him, they immediately promoted Jake Brummel, who was Pearson's second-hand man for all of this. Actually, for the last 3 years, he has been the Red Sox Assistant Director of Amateur Scouting. Man, that is a handful to say, huh? Anyways, and has been in the Red Sox organization in general since 2019. So we'll see what that looks like come draft time this year. I think ultimately, Breslow's the one who sets the sort of ideology behind what the draft is going to be, right? I think he goes in there and he says, look, this is exactly what we're looking for. This is what I want you guys to look for. This is kind of the area that I'm targeting type stuff. And then these guys just sort of execute it, right? So I'm not sure too much that anything's really going to change in terms of how the Red Sox go about their drafting process now that Pearson's out of the organization, especially with the fact that Jake Brummel was under Pearson for the last 3 seasons, right? It feels like they're just sort of handing the baton over, right? They're going to say, okay, you're going to keep the same pace, you're going to keep the same track, you're just going to continue it with a different title. And honestly, I think that's good for the Red Sox, right? I think one thing they've done exceptionally well over this sort of losing period, basically since 2021 here, has been their ability to draft really impressively, right? Again, you talk about even going back to the Bloom era, you look around this Red Sox team and between drafting, signing international free agents from the DR, Venezuela, or wherever, and then trading for minor league talent, they've been really good at it, right? I mean, Marcelo, Roman, Zaydan, Christian Campbell, we just mentioned a ton of guys that have been drafted the last couple of years, right? So I'm hoping that they kind of keep this same strategy because it's been a real strength. However, we're not only talking about the front office in terms of the Red Sox potentially losing some people. We also have to talk about some coaches that could end up leaving this Red Sox team as well. Or I guess specifically one coach that could be leaving the Red Sox. And the reason we have to talk about that in today's video is because the Minnesota Twins are potentially looking to take Ramon Vazquez from the Boston Red Sox. According to a few different sources, the Twins have requested the Red Sox give them access to Vazquez to interview for their vacancy at the manager position. It's also rumored that the Red Sox have allowed that to happen, right? I guess they could technically say, no, we don't want you to interview with them. We're going to prevent you from doing that. As long as a person is under contract with the Red Sox, a coach specifically, they have every right in the world to do that. It just never really happens, right? You never really see a team deny access for another team to interview them, especially when it comes to the manager role. And it kind of looks like, too, that he was the first person the Twins went out and interviewed. Now, honestly, I'm not sure how much when in the interview process matters for how likely they're going to be to land the job, but it does make it clear that he was the top of their list, which makes sense. He's been a coach in baseball for 9 seasons now. He's been with the Red Sox on their bench since 2018, so he's seen a couple of pretty good winning seasons for the Red Sox, seen a couple of bad seasons for the Red Sox as well, and he's been the bench coach for Alex Cora for the last 3 years now. And hey, he does have a 100% winning percentage as the manager of this team, right? One when Alex Cora's daughter was graduating, so he ended up managing the team for that game. And then there was another game, I think, sometime later in the season where Cora got kicked out really early, so the win ended up going to Ramon Vazquez. I can't really remember exactly when that was, but I do know he's 2-0. So hey, maybe that's that's what separates him from these other candidates. Honestly, I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of these conversations pop up over this offseason. One, because there's just so many different managerial positions open right now in Major League Baseball, right? That we're going to see a lot of different candidates interview for a lot of different jobs. But two, because as much as we rag on this coaching staff and as much as we sort of get on these guys for mistakes that they make on a game-to-game level, I do think that throughout Major League Baseball, this coaching staff's regarded as pretty good. So I think this isn't going to be the only time we're going to see Ramon Vazquez interview for jobs, but I don't think it's the only time we're going to see Red Sox coaches in general interview for some of these open managerial jobs. But honestly, if we're looking specifically at this situation right now, I don't know that losing Ramon Vazquez would be the worst thing in the world for the Red Sox, because what it would allow them to do is actually kind of give Varitek a bump up in the organization and potentially hold him off of taking one of these managerial jobs. If you're interested in not losing Tech and Vazquez goes to the Minnesota Twins, well, you could sit here and you could say, hey man, why don't you just take over as bench coach for the Red Sox, right? He puts you one step closer to being a major league manager, gives you some experience of potentially even being a major league manager. Alex Cora does like to get kicked out of games from time to time, right? So I could see that happening 100%. Actually, Tech did speak to WEEI a couple of days ago where he talked about what his future with the Red Sox is going to look like. Specifically, he said, quote, Craig reached out this weekend for us to get together this week. I think later Wednesday, which was yesterday, we'll have a conversation. I mean, you have to see everything that goes on. Have I been here for 28 years? Yes. Have I dumped everything I've had to make this organization better and the people that you mentor, coach, and be a part of? Yes. Do I want to continue to do that? Yes, but we'll have to see where it all lies. He then went on to mention some managerial openings and potentially things there. But again, if Vazquez leaves, this could be your prime opportunity to make sure Tech is in a Red Sox uniform for his foreseeable future. So I got to be honest with you, when we're talking about Vazquez leaving, I'm not really one way or the other, right? I'm not too sure that this is going to be a detrimental loss for the Red Sox. He's obviously very talented. He's obviously a very good coach if he's getting offers to be a manager in Major League Baseball, but it's kind of like when you lost that other guy, I can't even remember his name, Flores maybe, who ended up coaching, I think it was the Chicago White Sox, something like that, right? But you didn't really notice his absence either, so I'm kind of in the middle on this one. And that's kind of honestly where I am with all of these, right? To me, it's interesting that so many Red Sox personnel, whether it's in the front office or on the coaching staff, are getting either looks for other opportunities or getting legitimate opportunities and taking those opportunities with other teams, right? I just sit here and, like, to me, I just can't get angry or upset or happy or whatever about these guys leaving because, to be honest with you, we don't know, at least as fans, how much impact they've had on the Boston Red Sox, right? We can't sit here and quantify how good Paul Tobani was for the Red Sox. We can't sit here and quantify how important Devin Pearson was for this Red Sox team. I think for some ways we can quantify how good Ramon Vazquez has been, but I sit here with this and it's just like, okay, what do the Red Sox do next? How do they move on from this? How do they continue to grow from this, right? And so for me, I just sort of sit here and it's interesting to talk about, but it's not incredibly like emotionally triggering for me as opposed to, losing a player or losing Alex Cora, who what their quantitative sort of impact on this team actually was. To me, what ultimately the thing I come away from this is, as much as we sit here and rag on the front office and rag on the coaching staff, it's clear that the league views them differently than we as fans do, right? The league's viewing these guys as a pool of really impressive talent that's worthy of bigger and better things in other places. So for the Red Sox to have that, I think is really impressive, and it just goes to show you that maybe we're underrating both the front office and the coaching staff just a little bit. However, maybe not fully underrating them, but let me know what you guys think. Did you guys have an emotional reaction to these? If you did, let me know in the comment section down below. If not, what do you think about them from sort of a neutral standpoint? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just simply helps out a ton, and it's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.